If you've ever watched Outlander and thought, wait, what timeline are we in right now? You're not alone. Because beneath the romance, the war, and all the drama, Outlander is actually telling one of the most complex time travel stories on TV. But once you break it down, it all starts to make sense, and it actually becomes even more impressive. So let's walk through the full timeline and explain exactly how time travel works in Outlander. Everything begins with Claire Fraser in 1945. She's just come out of World War II and is trying to reconnect with her husband on a second honeymoon in Scotland. And then, in one moment that completely changes everything, she touches the standing stones at Cray na Dun and gets pulled back over 200 years into the past. Suddenly, Claire is in 1743 Scotland. And this is where the real story begins. At first, it feels like survival. Claire is thrown into a dangerous world she doesn't understand, surrounded by people who don't trust her. But then she meets Jamie Fraser, and that's the moment the timeline stops being just about time travel and becomes something much deeper. Because from this point on, Claire isn't just stuck in the past, she chooses to stay. Now, this part of the timeline moves forward in a pretty straightforward way. Claire and Jamie fall in love, they get married, and they become caught up in the political tension building toward one major historical event, the Battle of Culloden. And this is where Outlander introduces one of its most important rules about time travel. Claire knows Culloden is coming. She knows it's going to be a disaster. So, naturally, she tries to stop it. She tries to change history. But she fails. Culloden still happens. And this tells us something critical about how time works in Outlander. You can influence events, you can change small things, but the big moments in history? Those are fixed. After Culloden, everything changes. Claire is pregnant, and Jamie makes the hardest decision of his life. He sends her back through the stones to save her. So Claire returns to the future, this time to 1948. Now here's where the timeline gets really interesting. Because from Claire's perspective, she moves forward 20 years, living in the modern world again. She raises her daughter, Brianna Fraser, and tries to build a life. But emotionally, she's still tied to Jamie. At the same time, literally at the same time, Jamie is still in the past, living through those same 20 years. So the timeline splits, but it doesn't break. Claire experiences 1948 to 1968. Jamie experiences 1746 to 1766. Two different timelines moving forward together, just in different centuries. And then comes the reunion. Claire discovers that Jamie survived Culloden, and that changes everything. Because now she has a choice again. Stay in the future, or go back to him. And of course, she chooses Jamie. She travels back to 1766, and from that point on, their story continues together in the past. No more long separations, no more split timelines, just a shared journey moving forward. But this is where Outlander expands its timeline even further. Because it's not just Claire traveling anymore. As the story continues, Brianna eventually learns the truth, and she travels back through the stones too. Then Roger Mackenzie follows her. Now you have multiple time travelers, all moving between centuries, all affecting the same timeline. And that's when things really start to overlap. The story shifts to America, to Fraser's Ridge, and into the growing tension of the American Revolutionary War. And just like Culloden, this is another event Claire knows is coming, and knows she probably can't stop. So now the timeline isn't just about love and survival, it's about legacy. It's about how the past, present, and future all connect through one family. Now let's talk about how time travel actually works in this world, because it's not random. First, the stones themselves. Time travel only happens at specific places, ancient stone circles. You have to physically touch them, and even then, it's not guaranteed to work. Second, not everyone can travel. There's something like a genetic ability tied to it. That's why Claire can do it, and why Brianna can too. Third, and this is important, gemstones. Every time someone travels, they need a gemstone. It acts like protection or maybe even fuel. Without it, the journey becomes dangerous, sometimes deadly. And then there's the most fascinating part. Intention. In Outlander, you don't just travel randomly through time. You can actually guide where you go, by focusing on a person, a place, or a connection. That's why Claire keeps ending up where Jamie is. It's not coincidence. It's emotional pull. But even with all of that, there are limits. You can't just rewrite history. Outlander operates on what you could call a self-correcting timeline. Characters can change details, influence outcomes, even save lives, but the major historical events still happen. Culloden happens. The revolution happens. History bends, but it doesn't break. And that's what makes the timeline feel so real. Because every time Claire tries to change something, there's always a consequence. Sometimes small, sometimes massive, but always there. So when you step back and look at the full picture, the timeline of Outlander isn't just about jumping between centuries. It's about how those centuries are connected. It's about how one decision in the past can echo into the future and how the future can shape what people choose to do in the past. But more than anything, it's about one relationship. Because at the center of all of this, every timeline, every jump, every choice, is the connection between Claire Fraser and Jamie Fraser. That's the constant. That's the anchor. And that's why, no matter how complicated the timeline gets, the story always feels grounded. Because in the end, Outlander isn't really about time travel. It's about love moving through time.